Hello everyone and welcome back to the Brightworks and another match of Beyond All Reason, where today we're going to be taking a look at a viewer submitted game. Well, I guess that's not fair to say. Most of my games are viewer submitted games, but today definitely a lower level viewer submitted game that appeared over on my Discord channel. It looked like a long one and it was played on a map that, well, you'll see for yourself in just a second here. Turns out to be one of those maps of all time. Today, spawning as the red team leader. Spawning up here in the water, spawning on Glacial Gap. Spawning as the Red Cortex Commander, a commander that goes by the name of Benja. Specifically the 999th version of Benja, apparently. Gonna be showing us what they've got today here as a Cortex Commander spawning on the high seas. Obvious easy early choice to go for those Cortex bots. Cortex boats, pardon me. Those Cortex boats are usually superior in almost all respects. However, on a map like Glacial Gap, there is an argument to be made that those early Armada submarines can buy you quite a tremendous advantage if you know how to use them properly. And now, looking at the open skills of this map, 21 open skill going to be the blue team leader versus 20 for the red, sets sort of the stage for the level of skill that we're looking at across the board here today. So, maybe a better off that we're going for a couple of those Cortex boats anyways. Spawning on the other side of the map, spawning also as a Cortex commander, but spawning in the air position, our blue team leader, a commander that goes by the name of Minden 60. Minden 60? I'm not sure. Minden 60. Minden 60, maybe. The blue commander here, spawning as a core commander, going to be going for scouting plane right off rip right here. I don't mind it, of course, handing that scout out across, or sending that scout out across the map and trying to get a little bit of a vision for what's going on the other side. Never a bad idea. But also, those shuriken might come in very useful in the high seas later on as well. Early tick has been produced over here. I'm not entirely sure what the purpose of this tick is. It's been rallied into the enemy's main base. You are landlocked, my friend. Nuclear bomber, nuclear underscore bomber, the landlocked Armada commander right here. Gonna be going for some bots right now, and I wonder if maybe we're gonna see a little bit of a tech path. You know, it's an interesting choice. What you could go for here is a little bit of a tech rush, where you go for sort of the default tech thing, where you go for wind turbines, and then build power, and then you sack the commander, go for T2, all that stuff. And then go into T2 Navy, right? Just so that these guys only have to worry about producing units, and then you can upgrade their economies essentially in the background. That could be an interesting strategy, but it does leave your front line a little bit exposed, especially if this commander back here is going to be playing air instead of rushing forward to put a naval lab down right here. That is oftentimes what we see. Not all the times, but oftentimes that is what we see. Sometimes we'll see this commander doing the same thing here. And that tends to work out very nicely. It looks like, indeed, we will have a constructor moving over here. Yeah, I wonder if the plan is to go ahead and put a Navy lab on this southern side down here. Not a bad idea. Obviously relieves some of the pressure right here from these commanders. Also steals a little bit of their metal, though, and that can be frustrating, especially as a Navy player, where every single ounce of that metal is desperately necessary. Naked expansions moving forward right here for the Hot Pink commander. My goodness. Grunts stepping forward as well. They should be discovering these naked expansions very soon here and moving in for the kill. Wooby, the lavender, the seafoam green commander, going to be stepping their grunts forward here. Finds a naked constructor and indeed will manage to easily get the kill right here. Yeah, citizen's arrest, not going to be nearly in time, and with too many units, that will go down quite easily. Units on the field, important, certainly. Mostly to protect your constructors from this sort of thing. Early scout units, they may seem a little bit useless, a little bit worthless. This is exactly what they're useful for. You got to protect those constructors, otherwise we just lost about 250 metal in T1 constructors on the front line. Now the blitzes start rolling out of the lab, but without the expansion here, yeah, those blitz tanks aren't really going to be rolling out in too quick of production here. You know, I say that. We've already got 4 of them on the line and a 5th rolling out as well. As long as the micro here is looking all right, though, this is definitely a numbers game that the blue team is going to be happy to win. Yeah, just like that, one blitz at a time. You can see how efficient these trades are. Rather than taking one big 6v3, 6v4 fight, taking a bunch of different 6v1 fights, and showing just how efficient that is. Every single blitz going down here with not a single tank or grunt being killed. My goodness. Yeah, I mean, this is fabulous. If the Hot Pink Commander wants to throw away those units, there's no reason why you shouldn't take that trade 100% of the time. This is some beautiful micro right here from the blue team. Just about as good as it gets. The blitz is continually pumped out of the lab, but we're completely out of metal at this point. Glad that the pink commander in the backline has realized this and started to send some units forward, hopefully reinforcing his opponent, or his teammate rather, to try and save the day. But my goodness, what an exorbitant waste of a whole bunch of units on the front line. Tank commander in position right here. Nicolin, the tank commander here at 13 open skill and 3 chevrons, going to be idling the comm right next to all these metal extractors. You know, they're not technically yours, but if you're Yeah, if your teammate doesn't happen to be claiming them, oftentimes best bet is to go ahead and throw those mexes up. You can always hand them over after they paid for themselves, right? Just get your medal's worth and then hand them back over. Here we go. Okay, so we do have that naval lab coming up. This is exactly what I was talking about. Wow, that's a lot of energy storages. Okay. Not entirely sure whether the powder blue commander here feels the need to go for 3 energy storages and 1 metal storage, but either way, going to be pumping out, yeah, I guess a tremendous amount of energy storage production. Meanwhile, hovercraft coming up for the yellow commander. Hovercraft, how do I feel about them? Well, in some respects, the hovercraft are quite useful because, of course, they can bypass torpedo launchers, which are going to be the most common form of static defense. And on the southern side, usually you don't want to fight down here with boats because there's all these islands that get in the way, and you can split your boats up really accidentally. That can lead to unfortunate trades. So fighting around here is really dangerous. So sometimes what we see is kind of like what the red commander had, well, queued just a minute ago, is just 1 million torpedo launchers down here. But of course, if you go for hovercrafts, you can just bypass that entirely. That's one reason to go for hovercrafts. The downsides, of course, are that they're quite expensive for a very frail unit. Yeah, a unit that can't really hold up against the boats or vehicles. Means that you have to be very careful about how you use them. You have to be careful not to donate them, throw them across the map, and accidentally lose all that metal. That can also cost you quite a lot. Blue team with an ever so slight advantage as far as the economy goes, throwing back and forth right here by the reclaim and whatnot, and as these mexes come up and online, that advantage is going to slowly start to fall here. We'll be looking a little shy in the units department. Yeah, there we go. Looks like we have bots being produced out of a rear bot lab, but of course, those are going to have to trudge miles and miles before they actually find anything. Also, mexes have been unclaimed right here. That's 16 metal, nearly double, well, actually exactly double the starting economy right here. That's, well, you can think of it in terms of 3 times your bot lab production, or a bot and a vehicle and an air lab production. Either way, I think we're going to want to get those mexes up and running. It is offset somewhat by the fact that Wooby has done a wonderful job setting up these mexes here and going for a couple of those LLTs. Oh, nice D-guns right there. Beautiful D-guns from Wooby. Lovely, lovely stuff from the Seafoam Green Commander. Manages to blast down so many of those units. So many thousands of metal worth of blitzes and grunts goes down. Well, probably not 1,000 metal. It was probably closer to 600 or so. Still very lovely little trade right there. Definitely a miss micro from the Hot Pink Commander. Grinsakatse 0815. Feel like we're definitely picking on the Hot Pink Commander today, but other than this line, the action is sort of stagnated. Now, this is one of those things that I definitely noticed the pros do quite a bit better than some of the Joes. Yeah, it's just getting into fights a little bit quicker, making sure to continually aggress all over the place. You can imagine these pawns scouting around over here would find that there's 3, 4, 5 metal extractors that you could probably pick off before these LLTs even had to engage. Yeah, you would be able to snag all of those, and not to mention you could also send pawns forward to cut off the reinforcements back here. Little details like that are difficult to figure out in-game, but once you realize it from a spectator's point of view, it's very easy to figure that out in-game here. Hold on, let me just select nickel in here. So you can see radar tower comes up, and you can see there's this big fortified zone, but we're seeing slowly 1 dot at a time come up from the side here. It means the reinforcements are slowly leaking out of the lab back here. It means 4 or 5 grunt in the backline sniping these reinforcements would completely shut off the reinforcements sent from, or for Wooby, meaning this front line essentially is cut off entirely. Yeah, nickel and moving forward, and I'd love to see it. Claiming those metal extractors obviously extremely important. Big old grunt pull down here. It looks like, wow, mostly devastated right there from the LLTs and the D-guns and all sorts of the rest of it. What a wonderful trade right there for the Seafoam Green Commander. Again, taking a fabulous engagement against the Hot Pink Commander, losing hundreds and hundreds of metal and donating it directly to the economy here of the Seafoam Green Commander. Beautifully done. Neither of these navies on the high seas want to engage each other. You can see the Purple Navy now looking up to about 4,500 metal. The Orange Navy closer to 4,000 metal. Both looking for opportunities to engage each other, but neither really having the right opportunity to do so. There's that torpedo launcher, by the way. Couple destroyers on the southern side, not the end of the world, but I would love to see these used a little bit more aggressively. Destroyers have the range to actually engage with a lot of these units. Putting them to work is always, yeah, usually the right move. Now, one bit of micro tip I can give you if you're an aspiring Navy player is when you're microing your units back and forth, try and select the high-value targets. You can select the destroyers, select frigates that are veering off course away from the pack, select other units of different colors. So you can see how these are all purple, but there's one cyan. If you select that cyan boat and it goes too far forward, it's going to be killed immediately. Try to think in terms of taking out single targets rather than distributing damage across the entire surface of this army, because frankly speaking, it's going to be very difficult to AoE down this army until you have a proper full-fledged force of destroyers. There we go. As predicted, the destroyer lingers a little too far and takes a whole bunch of damage, down to just 10% HP. The submarine also quite low there as well. That's exactly what I was talking about. Oftentimes when these units aren't handed over to one commander to micro, they end up being mis-microed, and suddenly you end up in a situation where you have, one or two destroyers slowly but surely feeding their metal into the enemy team, and it can be a tremendous advantage to whosoever manages to reclaim all that juicy metal. Actually, a bit of a lack of aggression right here from Wooby as well. Trying to fortify this central section with all these metal extractors, but frankly speaking, could be pushing forward and trying to grab these metal extractors as well. A couple of units up and available, but with how efficient those trades have been, frankly, it doesn't really matter. T2 vehicles rolling out on the front lines here, by the way. We do have a Starlight, the mobile tachyon weapon, fires a big blue laser out into the distance. Gonna carve apart the T1 forces on the fronts here. Pretty good against T2 as well. Hover tanks have been discovered on the southern side. Oh, we have Banshees. Ooh. Not a fan of the Banshees, not at all. Here we go. Destroyer lagging behind, a little bit behind the pack, but it's really all it takes. One or two good engagements like that to blast down those destroyers, and you find yourself in a really nice position. Res subs under the waves, trying to patch everything up as well, is always nice. A lot of the time, these Navy battles come down to who manages to build more res subs the quickest. Lovely engagement right there. Yeah, continuing to fire away at that destroyer and weaken it up, but also damaging those frigates just as fast as we can build them. This fight is looking better and better for the Orange Commander, just taking it one engagement at a time, but making sure to get the maximum value out. Reclaim here is the saving grace of the Purple Commander, who you can see has managed to eat up the majority of this metal here. Will probably lose at least one of those res subs, if not both. Wow, actually, they both get away. My goodness, res subs fleeing for their lives across the ocean floor managed to get away from the torpedoes being dropped down into the seas. And you can see now this Navy in total is about 8,000 metal strong versus the Orange Navy is about 6,000. Well, I guess if we include the Red Army. Both of these teams right here, including half an army that's idle and half an army that's skirmishing. If either one of them handed all of the units to one commander, they would easily win the naval fight. Not the case, though, and so indeed we'll see half a battle here and half a battle there, but nobody actually persistently winning any engagement completely. The Riot Tank wall. Demour of Riot Tank now pushing forward right here. Hopefully going to be getting some value. Not exactly a skirmishing unit, though. And yeah, I think these maces have highlighted that point thoroughly. Yeah, not really engaging properly against those maces. Really what you want against the maces are going to be medium tanks. Those are going to trade out much more efficiently across the board against the maces. Those Riot Tanks are mostly just meant for dealing with big spams of AoE units, or big spams of light units, scout units, grunts, pawns, ticks, rovers, rascals, that sort of thing. I don't mind this engagement right here because obviously we can reclaim all of this. Yeah, if we have just a couple res bots in the backline, which doesn't look like we do, but if we had a couple res bots in the backline, we would have a wonderful time eating up all this wreckage right here, not to mention all these vehicles that are going down semi-efficiently. Yeah, Mace is having a wonderful time, again, blasting away at those tanks. Gauntlet set up on the front line here is interesting, and we do have the Commander reclaiming as well, not bad. It's about time for T2, and indeed we have it. T2 now sprinting out to the front line. Sprinters indeed going to be mashing their way across the sand and out to the fronts here. Such a light bot that it doesn't even leave footprints, apparently. Nearly gliding across the snow, as if it were a hovercraft. These poor hover tank, man. They've been looking for value this entire game and just have found absolutely zero. Yep. Yellow Commander cannot be pleased with the way that that has been going. Apparently idle in the background here. Yeah, the Yellow Commander just saving up some resources. Gonna be going for a fusion reactor. There it is. Fusion reactor comes up 13.5 minutes into the game. We can obviously eat up the T2 lab to fund the other half of this fusion reactor. We basically got one half here. No build power over here for the fusion reactor, though. Is a little bit of a choice decision. Wouldn't mind seeing another 4 construction turrets set up over in this section here, or maybe back here somewhere. Anywhere where we can help that fusion reactor come up and online a little bit quicker. 2 half measures does not make a whole. Half the red and half the orange force, or I should say half of the red team's forces fighting in different locations right here. You can't really afford it in the Navy. Sometimes you can get away with it on land, you can get away with it on air, especially if you're going to specialize into one tech path or the other. On Navy, you really just cannot. You have to have your full force, or you have to have nothing. That's why splitting Navy units is so tremendously difficult. Sprinters are in number at this point, so we could see them start to overwhelm some of these T1 trash units. This army just also looks phenomenal. Nicolin's commander, actually way too far forward. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Caught by the riot tanks, the slowest moving tank known to mankind. Manages to catch that commander lacking, and just like that, blasting it down to smithereens. My goodness. That was not supposed to happen. These riot tanks were not expecting to get a accredited commander kill. That wasn't on their agenda for today. And with that Starlight for fire support, actually, this is looking like a really fabulous trade. Huh. All things considered, a wonderful time right here for the blue team. Now pushing forward, that our gauntlet is in range. Boom goes the Starlight, and you can see just how devastating that thing is against those static targets. Wow. Just like that, whoever pulls the trigger first ends up winning the fight, and in this case, it's going to be the blue player. These thugs are not really serving their purpose here. Surprised to see that we're making thugs while we have the welder available. Maces, pardon me. We've got a complicated queue set up right here for the tank commander. I think ultimately we should cancel all this and just be going for welders. Maces costing 130, welders costing 350, but with nearly 3,000 HP versus the Maces 1,000. It's double the cost for triple the HP. Easy math to do right there, and my goodness, with all this reclaim on the front lines, oh my goodness. What a brutal front line right here. My goodness, hold on, I want a really close-up shot. Looking like a straight-up automaton defense facility. The Lavender commander has gone for a massive fortified sector on the front lines here. We've got an agitator, LLTs, jammers, frontline defenses, walls, the whole 9 yards. SAM turrets and everything too. Call me misery. Going heavily into that T1 static defense. I think it's about time we make that transition towards T2. There is about a grand 7,500 metal out here on the front line. I love this single Starlight too. I mean, how realistically it's only gotten 14 kills, but those have been 14 high value kills, right? Like, it can pop those units that otherwise take quite a few shots. Not to mention that if it gets a decent engagement, it can also blast through units, right? It'll kill one and then continue firing, kill the second, kill another, so on and so forth. Recently got its attack area changed too, so you can see it's a big half circle. I'm a big fan of that. A little bit clearer range indicator, always a benefit, right? Knowing where your units can actually shoot is always a good thing. Okay, counterattack is pulled. Tan and hot pink, and everybody else forces are push. Actually, it is just tan and hot pink. Yeah, maroon now getting hounds online. At this point, the battle is a mess. We still have T1 bots, we still have T1 everything, and yet there are only 2 res bots out here cleaning up this battlefield. Oh no, actually there's a few res bots. Okay, nicely done. Most of them sprinting to their doom right here, accidentally on the same queue as the units that were spammed forward, but at least a couple of them are reclaiming this battlefield and going to be sending some of that nearly 9,000 metal now back towards the facilities to pump out hopefully some more T2. We still have aggravators and maces coming up, which does not bode well. Naval battle going on as well. Looks like a whole bunch of destroyers now built up for the Purple Force. Yeah, we've snowballed those destroyers hard. We're now at a point where the destroyers can effectively one-shot their brethren. Not to mention being vastly more effective against the frigates here as well. And my goodness, what an extensively effective trade for the Purple Commander. Just eviscerating this Navy right here for the Orange Commander. Way too clumped together, and with the little AoE that the battleship does, or the destroyer ship does, managing to ravage the forces here of the Orange Commander. Beautifully done. When in Rome, make destroyers, and indeed that's what the Purple Commander has run away with. Hard to take a better fight than that. There's a reason they're the king of the T1C, the destroyer just more than capable of skirmishing against equivalent numbers of basically anything. It's got more range, it's got the anti-sub, it's got everything that you could want and more. And that is a sturdy, easy win right there for the blue team. You can easily stop producing T1 units, go into T2 right here, get your T2 economy up and running, get a little T2 fusion reactor up and running, and get those T2 boats rolling out, and this is an easily won naval game. We'll have to see, because this match goes on quite a while, and usually once you win the Navy in this map, you're done. You've won the game. Curious to see how on earth we're going to be able to try and save ourselves. Bombers coming in right now. You know, bombers I'm not so big a fan of, but maybe a couple of shuriken to paralyze some of these units wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. We do have T2, by the way. That's why the army was significantly smaller right here. The T2 Buccaneers are now going to be rolling out. 1,000 metal apiece compared to the 980 metal apiece, or 960, pardon me, for the destroyer, the Oppressor Cortex destroyers. Relatively similar cost, actually, is pretty interesting. Mass Starlights also built up on the front lines. Well, mass, maybe a little over-exaggerative. Oh my goodness, we're going for Mass Gauntlet. Somebody's been playing too many of those scenarios. We're going for Mass Gauntlets in the backline. Mass defensive gauntlets. Not using them to push the front line in at all. We're just going to use them to secure this choke point, I suppose. I can't wait to see what a bunch of lightning tanks do to those poor gauntlets. Meanwhile, destroyers on the southern side have just been biding their time and finally find an opportunity that they feel comfortable pushing forward here. And going ahead and tearing down all these torpedo launchers. Lovely stuff. Overall, the blue team just more aggressive. Yeah, just 100% more aggressive. Doing more on the map all the time and constantly making the trades worth it. And I think that's showing exactly how effective it can be. We do have those newly buffed Brimstone anti-swarm ships. They're a little bit cheaper, they're a little bit smaller, makes them a little more maneuverable and a little bit harder to hit. Means they're quite good for going toe-to-toe with, say, for instance, frigates and that sort of thing. Still, though, you do have to be wary. They're obviously not the most armored thing in the world, and their DPS does come from an effect over time, so keeping them alive while encircling their units is usually the best bet here. Despot battleship firing away right now at the destroyers, but the destroyers actually don't care. They're just continuing fire as well against that battleship. Really, it's the submarines making all the difference here. The cruiser slacking on the job. Yeah, not releasing those depth charges and lets his big brother go to waste. Unfortunate, because that Despot really is necessary right about now. Submarines turning their torpedo launchers towards the economy right now of the Orange Commander, Janik Bay. The German commander. Oh, there's some German commanders. Maybe they'll understand what I said. Demauer. As far as I understand, that means the wall. I think it's a term for or it's a nickname for a StarCraft 2 pro. Can't remember. Is it Clem? I can't remember which StarCraft 2 pro, but it is a StarCraft 2 pro. Slowly dealing with these submarines. Gunboats also, yeah, not bad. This whole thing has been cleaned up, though. Yeah, nicely done with the res subs right here. All of this metal is going back to the purple commander. Torpedo bombers are shot out of the sky. This is still a win. These despots can just go win this game right now. We have the... Yeah, we do have the Buccaneers coming out. We should also have some anti-air boats included in the mix here. Massive Hound army going up against T1. Obviously, I'm going to favor the Hounds right now. This is the kind of game where everyone starts turning around and pointing at their teammates, wondering where it all went wrong. I can say for certainty that the blue team was more aggressive about coming out on the map, trying to make sure that they were constantly getting effective trades all over the place. Taking fights that were just more efficient in every front, rather than porking up and defending. But then again, as I say that, the fourth of a series of aggravators, nearly exactly 6,500 metal, come online in the backline right here. So, I mean, you can imagine, if that 6,500 metal were, say, a fusion reactor and a bunch of T2 units, that would also be quite good. Centrally located Vanguard, which did get a buff, by the way. The Vanguards now shoot quite a bit further. 1450 range is abysmal. I mean, well, not abysmal. It's abysmal if you're going up against it, is what I mean. It's devastating if you're going up against it. You can see firing away just a nightmarish range over there. Can shell you from outside of the vision of even some of the furthest hitting static defenses. Which I believe was the reason why it was changed, by the way. As I understand it, they wanted to allow it to besiege static defenses like pulsars and that sort of thing. Torpedo bombers, doing a decent job. I mean, connecting with a lot of this here, but there's really only so much you can do. Again, these are destroyers, and destroyers hit pretty hard. Those T2 long-range battle submarines, the Kraken, firing away very slowly, but eventually hitting their shots and bringing down a bunch of these destroyers. It's just not a quick process, and with more and more falling under fire here, the red team is in a very desperate way. You know, the battle subs are getting value, though. 3 kills so far, and more on the way, I'm sure. Pulsar, you're doing a great job. As long as these battle submarines continue to fire against this, they can find efficient value. The wall of riot tanks. I've never seen this mixed of a composition. We have T3 rolling out at the same time that we have T1 still on the battlefield. What a bizarre mixture of not like spam of T1, like actual legitimate T1 fighting forces, riot tanks, which I think are make the most sense on this battlefield as a anti-swarm mechanic. The thugs are certainly well outclassed at this point in the game. We have a full T2 Hound Lightning Tank army. And, yeah, I mean, this is all going to get torn to shreds. There we go. Hounds blasting away at all the lightning, or all the riot tanks. Vanguard having a field day, blasting away at this as well. Shield generator even up and online for the Tan Commander, as some fat boys now roll out on the field as well. Even a rattlesnake, cloakable, pop-up, plasma artillery shelling away here as well. Blue team doing a phenomenal job of claiming these metal extractors. I am glad to see that we're rebuilding these mexes. I'd love to see these ones taken up on the, pardon me, northern side as well. The timidness here from the blue team could be their downfall. Submarine without the vision to actually hit those shots, firing into the unknown. Res subs having such a field day. A single res sub costing 200 metal and reclaiming 40 a second, so it takes just over 4 seconds, about 4.5 seconds, to reclaim its value's worth. And yeah, they've done a phenomenal job of reclaiming this entire battlefield. Certainly more than sufficient. Now a Thor is out on the front line. What a weird tech path we've seen from the blue, or from the red team here. It feels like we skipped the T2 game entirely. Like, it feels like we just went straight to Vanguards and Thors. And I'm here for it. Like, this is what I live for. The Thor rushing directly ahead into the agitators. You could not get a better fight than this. The Thor heavy Terminator tank against a bunch of T1 static defenses. So I just go ahead and do this. We can track this Thor on its rampage across the battlefield. Where are our commanders to degun this Thor is the question on everybody's mind. The thugs having a wonderful time pretending like they could do anything to kill this Thor. Thors do have this weird issue where they have to adjust their main cannon every once in a while. And if they track a target that moves fast enough, they'll just continually adjust the cannon without ever actually properly firing. Bit of a weird issue, but it does tend to work in the enemy's favor a lot. And so it's important to remember that you can over-micro Thors. Static defenses or units, certainly going to be no issue, though. There it goes. Heavy lightning cannon, just quick to demolish all of them. Important to remember there's EMP missiles stored in those Elfiers on the side of the Terminator tank as well. In case you were wondering what's housed in there, when those Elfiers are perked up like that, it means that there's a missile charged and you can fire it away. It stores 2 of them, 1 in each ear. Finally goes down here to the Razorback after a massive tear through the front line right here. Using those EMP missiles can oftentimes allow you to shut down some of the sturdiest of defenses, things that otherwise would be a tremendous threat to the Thor. Big pulsar groupings are probably one of the most common, but also you could imagine if you land an EMP against a bunch of these Starlight or a bunch of T3 units like Titans or Razorbacks, you're going to be in a good way there as well. Tsar super heavy tanks, very heavy assault tanks firing away right now at any of these units that they can. Vanguard, though, pretty much the granddaddy of long-range artillery. Surprised that we don't see them up on the hillside, though. There's no reason these all-terrain spiders shouldn't be firing away from the hills over here rather than directly in line-to-line combat, Civil War-style combat. So what we're seeing here on the naval sector is timidness leading to a comeback story. Yeah. The red team has been allowed an abundance of time to actually rebuild into this game, and now just like that, the Red Navy takes a phenomenal trade against a bunch of the purple forces here. Yeah. You know what? With those Armada heavy battleships, the Dreadnoughts fire a devastating barrage of plasma artillery. Just like that, this front line has been completely wiped away, and there's basically no other T2 forces for the purple commanders. What an unfortunate trade right now. As long as we get this reclaimed and pumped into some of these T2 production facilities, the red team is going to be in a really good way on the Navy. It's time to get aggressive, though, and we need to have some anti-sub as well. We do have the Buccaneers out here, but I would like to see a couple of Paladins. Maybe even a bunch of Ducks wouldn't be the worst idea. Submarines looking for a target. There they go. Res subs are caught, which means that this wreckage will be secured right here by the... That was weird. Submarine went down. By the red team. This is enough wreckage, I do believe, to actually build a capital ship. Oh, more than enough. 23.8k, capital ship costing 18,000 metal. You could build a capital ship and then some. And it wouldn't be the worst idea. Yeah, there we go. We do have the Epoch coming up right here. That was Wormy, the Powder Blue Commander, thinking ahead right here and going for one of those heavy T3 late-game capital ships. The Armada is a bit of a weird one. Or the Epoch, pardon me. It has twin Gauss cannons, which make it excellent at shelling away at long-range distances. But it also has a terrible weakness of not being able to fire all of its guns backwards. I've called them Star Destroyers before for exactly the same reasons. They're essentially meant for a head-on engagement. As soon as you turn them away in a different direction, they lose a lot of their firepower. Ideally, you keep them pointed directly at your enemy. This army of destroyers is actually nothing to scoff at. That is a grand 13,000 metal worth of T1 destroyers. We have some anti-air on the capital ship blasting away some fighters here as well. It's nothing special, but it is enough to shoot down at least some of those T1 fighters. Oh, nuclear bombers coming in. Nice nuclear bombings. 78% remaining on that capital ship right here. Don't believe this will be enough nuclear bombers to actually take this down for good. The anti-air on there will be good enough, and with the fighter pull, those get cleaned up. But certainly an excellent opening right here for dealing with that capital ship. Yeah, not bad. Fighter's a little mismicroed right there. Usually want to have them spread out a little bit so the AoE effect of that anti-air doesn't hit so hard. Vanguard, by the way, lying in ruin on the front line here. Yeah, you can see the corpses of all those Vanguard. What an unfortunate mismanagement of those T3 resources. If those had been up on the hillside, they would have easily been able to shell away consequence-free at the base right here for Call Me Misery. Would have wiped out all of the Lavender forces. Would have made it very difficult for the blue team to push forward, but instead, this capital ship is offering a tremendous amount of support, blasting away at any forces that get too close. In fact, there's really nowhere to hide. You have to retreat way up to that northern side to escape the barrage right here of this capital ship. Black Hydra now out as well. Talk about a full-on naval battle. Full-blown T2. Man. Armada battleships all centered around full frontal engagements make it very, very difficult to retreat. Cortex navies, on the other hand, are essentially balanced around retreating. They are all Gauss, so they can fire backwards and hit a lot of those shots really, really effectively. Turtles are being sent forward for some reason. I can't really fathom why. These Hunter submarines are these, gosh, what are they called? Long-range LRBS. These LRBS. Long-range battle submarines are doing a great job. I think once these lock onto some of these boats, they're going to get tremendous value here, especially the capital ship. See, each one of those missiles doing about, what is that, 3% damage? It's not a lot, but when you consider that this capital ship has over 50,000 HP, yeah, it's a significant amount. Wow. And now being melted down by all the Gauss projectiles here. Battle submarines to the rescue. Just like that, that super heavy battleship does fall. An excellent defense right there. Man, the red team really rallied in the high seas. Razorbacks, meanwhile, have been pushing this northern side. Looks like... Oh, Pulsars must have gotten the field day on them, yeah. Pulsars here tearing through the Starlights that are way too clumped up. Starlights chain react when they explode. Razorbacks going on an absolute tear. Not really game ending though. Yeah, they haven't really hit any of the aphises or of course, the T1 solar panels. You can't forget the T1 solar panels. This nearly fusion's worth of solar panels for about half the energy. Cannot forget about those. It's always rough to see. I wish new players the very best, but I hope you all learned something from this match, and it's that you should not be building 400 solar panels in the late game. Yeah, these battle submarines do put in serious work. Yeah, my goodness. The sharpshooters of the sea, they've been called. Super expensive, though. You can't just be throwing them away like this. Okay, yeah, I like this less and less as we're pushing these forward. These are siege units. They're basically meant to fire from a long distance. They are not meant to be ambushing things up close and personal like this. This is definitely a misuse of their specialty. It's not the end of the world. It's not the most egregious use I've ever seen of them, but certainly out of their comfort zone, for sure. There's a capital ship hiding over here. There it is. Wonderful yellow Epoch now rolling out to the battlefield here. Going to be shelling away against the Epochs of the blue team. Epochs and Black Hydras. Yellow Commander with a stellar economy right now. Has got a nuclear launcher up and running as well. Curious to see how that's going to go. Resbots? No resbots. We do have a reclaim command from one of these T2 constructors. Very slow, those T2 constructors. Resbots obviously quite a bit quicker. Not the end of the world, though. Some of these economies looking completely cursed. Some of them looking quite stellar. The Yellow Commander nuclear bomber has definitely seen a couple of games. Knows what they're up to. The static defenses here are going to have a really tough time now that the capital ships are up and running. They will be constantly firing away at these static defenses. Never allowing them a moment of respite. Do we not have any radar detection? Looks like neither of these teams does, actually. I believe the Epochs and the Black Hydras have a little bit of innate radar built in. Maybe not. I could be wrong about that. What you really want to go for, though, is an anti-nuke boat. The anti-nuke ships have a tremendous amount of line of sight, allows you to fire away way into the distance. But, of course, they also have their anti-nuke capabilities, which are quite nice for keeping your navy alive, should it fall under fire. What is this boat doing? The single Epoch has rushed forward here. Okay. Definitely a dangerous waste of metal right there. The trigger is pulled as the purple forces begin to march forward. Long-range heavy submarine towers, advanced torpedo launchers. Doing a great job of blasting down a lot of these boats here, actually. They do a significant amount of damage. They're one of the most devastating static defenses in the game. Cost relative to damage. You know what? I think with the help of that static defense, this fight does work out in favor of the red team. Just efficient enough. At the very least, this res sub swarm will clean up most of that metal right here, but my goodness. What a dangerous position for the blue team to be in once more, without any navy, essentially. We do have a couple of T2 boats up and running, but basically nothing else. I'm gonna go ahead and speed this game up. Yeah. We can watch in high speed as these res subs go ahead and clean up this entire battlefield right here. The purple commander inheriting more metal than they possibly can deal with. Yeah, the blue team now overflowing metal to all commanders. Anybody that can use it can use it. Of course, a metal storage wouldn't be the end of the world here, though. That was about 50,000 metal, I do believe, that the blue team just about inherited. And putting it all to work, I mean, fair enough. Doing a great job of pumping out more and more boats, more and more units in the backline. The economic advantage for the blue team is about, go ahead and slow it down again, is about 40 to 30%, somewhere in between there. Up and down massively because of the reclaim. Maybe it's even less than that. Yeah, the reclaim really was going strong. Our second T1 defensive line right here, and an advanced geothermal to top it all off. Hilarious. Okay, hold on. I need to see really quickly. 2,535 metal worth of twin guards. A grand 6,000 metal worth of agitators and twin guards. And brings up to 11,655 metal worth of T1 static defenses right here. Maybe not even including all of them. Oh yeah, there's some LLTs back here too. 12,555. Or sorry, 12,555. A lot of amphibious tanks building on the southern side there. Would love to see those go ahead and get some value. Any value. One of the weirdest things about capital ships is their ability to hit submerged targets. So if you know where a bunch of submarines are, you actually can hit them with your capital ship. The impulse from their attack is actually big enough that you can see it can actually damage those submarines right there. One of the weirdest micro tricks you can pull off with an advanced navy is, yeah, sending those capital ships to kill a bunch of submarines. This is exactly a perfect use case for it, though. There's a big ball of submarines right here, and you can see the bubbles coming up where they're moving, in case you don't actually have vision, but you need to know where they are. Sonar vision. Basically what you can do is go ahead and fire into this cluster and damage up all those submarines, making it very easy to push forward. The red team just sitting here and taking it, though. I feel like mass submarine production wouldn't be the end of the world. The yellow commander struggling to spend that metal. Nuclear missile is launched. Oh. Where's it headed? I think it's headed directly towards the front line. Ah, there we go. Anti-nuke does intercept it. Is this anti-nuke? Yeah. Lavender commander counting their lucky stars that this Prevailer anti-nuke system managed to shoot down that nuclear missile. Maybe signaling that it's time to go for some of those mobile anti-nukes. Put them up on the front lines too. Obviously, this is all very volatile, right? You can see with this advanced geo right here, if this all pops, you're losing just about everything on this front line. Somebody looking to end the game right here. The blue commander sending in a couple of fighters and some bombers as well to try and pop the yellow economy, and boom, go the APHIS right there in the main base of the yellow commander. Bombers still bombing the rebel right here. A couple more APHISs are available. We should definitely be targeting those. Okay, bomber's gonna pop the E-converters here as well. Not the end of the world, obviously still a decent target, but APHISs would have been slightly better there. End all be all, the first actual damage I feel like we've seen in about 10 minutes. Yeah. The Terminator, or pardon me, the Titans. Well, I guess we have the Terminators as well. Can we see some EMP missiles? You hit D, and then you right-click and drag. Select these two. There we go. Select D, and then you right-click and drag. You can spread those missiles out and fire them in whatever direction you'd like. You can imagine if all of these were complete. Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! The chain reaction. I was going to say you can imagine if all of those were EMP'd, this would be much easier. But my goodness, the chain reaction just about killed them all, anyways. It's always startling to me how few commanders actually realize that those starlights are extremely volatile. This advanced geothermal is about to be a sudden shock right here to the red team as well. Should be an obvious, easy target to go for. T1 static defense is doing just about nothing to stop these heavy T3 from marching forward. They're the emotional support static defense, and they're not doing a very good job. Yeah. The blue team definitely not feeling very emotionally supported right now. The Titan brothers stepping forward with a crazy swarm of T1 rocket bots, maces, hounds, all sorts of random stuff. Oh, here comes some heavy bombers. Weirdest thing about the Titans, they have a lot of anti-air options. Their missiles, technically anti-air. Their lasers, technically anti-air. Even their impulse blasters, their twin cannon impulse blasters, close quarter impulsion blasters, they're also anti-air. So yeah, these bombers actually get dealt with pretty easily here. Definitely one of the strangest factors about the Titan. It does have a fatal weakness, though, in the fact that it can be EMP'd. Something to be aware of. Now that is a brutal wave of Thors that look to be rolling out on the map. I was wondering where the green team's where the blue team's forces were. Here's the green player's contribution. It's about 4.5 million Thors. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's a elegant composition, but I would certainly call it an effective one. 1 million Thors. Blasting their way across the battlefield, seemingly with no response right here from the red team. Instead, more than content to just push on up and over the hillside directly into the lavender base over here. We need a commander. Dauntless is the commander in charge right here. Let's see if the pink commander realizes what their duty to their empire is. You can imagine the nastiest of all D-guns, though. The mother of D-guns, D-guns themselves. First you were V-gon, then you will D-gon. Little reference right there for you. There we go. Lavender base. Now in complete shambles. Brought to you by Armada. It's expensive and less effective. You're welcome. That's the Armada slogan. Finally, the blue team has built the gumption to actually push forward now. Finally pushing into the main production facilities here of the red team. The yellow commander, after losing those APHISs, has been trying to rebuild this entire time. Never really got production back up to standard here, though. And it does mean that finally those capital ships find their purchase and manage to blast through this. Titan. Oh, stopping for a little tour here. Manages to kill a couple of those fusion rankers, but all said and done, yeah, not finding the juiciest of connections over here. A couple of fusions going down is nothing in the late game now. These Thors are still an issue. Dauntless still dancing away, careless to his team's imminent threat. Capital ships also in the backline. Wow. What a series of all-in attacks. The mass pull of Titans and Marauders and all sorts of other units. No match for the power of the Thor. All of these with EMP missiles, it's worth mentioning. You can imagine just sending your EMP missiles in a big spread like this would basically cover the entire field in EMP. Just like that, the blue team manages to close out this game. What a wild back and forth right there, with both teams seemingly winning their fights and then throwing their fights. Both teams seemingly clutching defeat from the jaws of victory, but it appears that it'll be the red team today who clutches the most defeat from the jaws of today's victor, the blue team. Wonderfully played right here. In some respects, that was a lot of Thors, but it did eventually work. One or two commanders in the way of those Thors, though, would have been able to stop that, and I can't help but wonder what the game would have looked like at that point. With both teams completely eradicated of their T3, it certainly would have been a different fight, but with the naval battle finally won here for the blue team. Won basically at minute 20, but not finished until minute 46. Can't help but wonder what the game would have looked like had things gone slightly differently on that northern side for the red team. Thanks a ton for watching. I sure hope you enjoyed today's Learners match of Beyond All Reason. Definitely an interesting one, to say the very least. I know I certainly enjoy taking a look at some of these lower level games, maybe helping some people improve and recognize what they can improve in their own gameplay. And I hope to see you in the very next game of Beyond All Reason. Peace out, everybody.